First Descendant, best modules, let's go. So, for starters, let's go ahead and just hop right into it. So in the earlier stages, just as a heads up, leveling up your blue ones is going to be really advantageous because they cost a lot less than some of the other ones. But earlier game really favors getting a lot of skill duration as well as cooldown reduction for your different Descendants. Specifically on Bunny, getting skill extension as well as nimble fingers in combination can make your characters feel a lot more fun. But on top of that, you're having some of these abilities up 100% of the time, and that's going to really speed up your process to get towards the end game. Other great things, if you are looking in the defensive category, do not invest into shields or resistances. Unlike other action RPGs where you have to res cap, in First Descendant, if you want extra tankiness, it is increased HP as well as defense. Just get both of those and you're gonna be good to go. The reason why is because you get way more scaling in HP for majority of the characters versus getting increased shields. Also, to speed up your process, you're able to pick up HP heals as well as another module later that we'll talk about, which matters a lot because of the amount of HP that you can scale versus the shields, unless you are doing some sort of niche build. Another thing that is great, I already was talking about how like HP is way better than shields. If you want to become even more tanky, HP amplification is phenomenal because again, shields really don't matter too much in this game when you are at the end game. Again, unless you're doing some like kind of a crazier build. Another thing is if you need additional cooldown, MP conversion can be good. It gives you way more cooldown, but it does remove your MP. Now, this isn't really too big of a deal because MP, it's not like you have infinite of it anyways, unless you're doing some sort of, again, end game sort of a build. This is totally fine to get as well. Again, cooldown reduction and skill duration are really good. Now, another thing that you can get earlier on, it doesn't have to be specific electric skill power or like extra bonus to singular, but if you are playing a build that can really benefit off of just AoE clear, again, getting any sort of damage earlier on, like with Bunny, getting electric specialist, because this is a blue one, the rarity does determine how much it costs, and again, in the earlier stages, you can one-shot pretty much most of the entirety of the game. If you're playing Bunny, you get cooldown reduction as well as skill duration. You throw in one extra offensive stat in your Descendant, you're going to be good to go. And then, if you want even more tankiness, now we're getting to some of the purple ones here. Iron Defense is really good as well. It gives you extra damage as well as more defense. Now, this one, it is a gold one, however, this is one of the best modules for pretty much every single Descendant in the game. So this is called HP Collector, and what it does is when you defeat an enemy, you get to instantly recover a % of your HP. That's why you want to scale way more into HP. And while there is a shield collector one, you can only scale your shields to be so high, and because this works off of a %, the more that you have, well, it's going to recover more numbers. So it is objectively going to be better because of that. So HP Collector is really good, and it's super easy to farm if you do need to farm it. I'm not going to make this video a guide on like the location of everything, but it's a pretty easy one to get. It's over in Vespers though. But now that we went into the Descendants modules, let's go ahead and hop right into the weapon mod. So what's going to give you the most DPS? Now, it depends on what you are actually using. Some weapons like the Bestial Organ, where you're basically shooting those rockets, that has a 1% crit. While if you look at some of the handguns, they have way higher crit rate. So you'll have to kind of factor this in, but in general, these are going to be the primary things that you're looking for every single build. Rifle reinforcement is the #1 thing that you want to invest into. If you want to top out on your DPS, this is the thing to invest into. It works on every single character, and keep in mind, there are different, like, you know, ammo types, but for the most part, all of them will have something. It's a little bit different on the explosives, but it's the same thing. Just the flat firearm attack is what you want to actually go for. And then on top of that, getting your fire rate to go ahead and be increased. This is actually huge with characters like Glade that can have infinite ammo, or if you reload, you get infinite ammo. It's a little bit more niche stuff, but specifically getting like your fire rate up is going to significantly increase your DPS. Another thing that will really help out is getting any sort of elemental effect here. So as far as it goes, this is mainly for the bosses, but it is just a flat increase in damage. It adds basically 30% of your damage into a different element. This is very relevant when you look at the weakness of a boss, and it can be something that you have to factor in. If the boss is resistant to another type, well, you're going to have to go ahead and invest into that one. And I really recommend for you guys that are interested in doing some of the end game farming things to basically choose which one that you want in the very beginning, level that one up, and then later go ahead and level them all up. You're pretty much going to want this for every single one, but you don't need to do it for every single one of your guns. Go ahead and select, of course, the one that may benefit your character a little bit more. But you're seeing we're doing endgame. In the hard mode, we're selecting every difficult modifier, and I'm blazing through content with my build. But nonetheless, also another fantastic one is action and reaction, which is great for a lot of builds as well. And the reason why this one is so good is, well, it just gives you a bunch of firearm attack. Now, this one technically has a downside of extra recoil, but you guys can control recoil. I'm confident in it, and there's nothing that's really going to be beating this for the amount of attack that you get. So this one is very, very good. Another thing I want to mention for modules, it is very important, even if you guys never use your melee ability, you do definitely want to invest into getting this, whatever melee skill that you can in the very beginning, because later you can upgrade your grappling hook to get increased range and stuff, but specifically getting the melee ability to be upgraded will give you extra modules. You'll see in the very beginning it doesn't give you anything, and it doesn't cost anything. This is actually very important too. So upgrade this too. It's going to give you a huge advantage in the game. Now, later though, you will want to upgrade something. Maybe if you get really lucky and you get one earlier on, you don't need to actually upgrade this, but get the grappling upgrade, because they're basically the same slot here. But in the earlier stages, you get one of these, it's going to help out a ton. But later, again, like I mentioned before, you can get a different mobility ability. So you can either get increased distance, which is really helpful on very specific bosses, because sometimes it's really hard to grapple on the bosses, specifically on like Frostwalker. If you guys have done that in hard mode, that thing is not the easiest thing to grapple onto sometimes. Or you can get mid-air maneuvering over here. There usually is some sort of downside, but once you upgrade it, it doesn't really matter too much, because you'll see that there's a decrease in the charge time at the very beginning. But again, you're going to upgrade these, but these will cost a lot more. Depending on the rarity of your module, that will actually change the actual price of your Kuiper shard, so take that into consideration as well. Now, I wanted to also kind of add a little bit more to this video, because those ones are pretty much the best mods for every single build. You're going to want that. But there are little things that I want to go over that can apply to a lot of builds, but not every single one. So to min-max in your DPS for your characters like abilities, or in the weapon department, a lot of builds will benefit off of crit, because it's in, I believe right now, a separate damage bucket, which is very important. So you do not want to skip out on crit in the very later stages of the game. Early game, honestly, I'm going to say it doesn't really matter too much, because you can't get these numbers up super high. So in the later stages of the game, if you want to min-max harder, invest into getting crit that's on your weapons as well as on your abilities. Now, I do want to explain something with crit, because it's not actually the same as like Diablo, and I need to mention this. So you can see over here on some of these, by the way, when you upgrade them, use this website TFT Tools, because if not, what happens is you may think, okay, well, if I upgrade this, I'm going to get extra, you know, it's going to increase all of the numbers. No, it only actually increases the fire critical hit damage, but not the crit rate. Like, that always stays at 1%. So it is important. But this 1% over here is not the same as you may think, and I want to actually kind of explain this, because it's very, very important. So there's other ones with some sort of like crit, right, where you get extra crit damage or the crit hit rate. There's a lot of different ones, depending on the ammo type. They kind of do the same thing for most of them. But specifically on getting in crit, let's say the stat over here said 100% firearm critical rate. That does not actually mean you get 100% crit hit rate. To explain this, how it works is it would be based off of your weapon's crit. So you'd have to go and check in the weapon category, what is the base crit. So to explain this over here, this one's actually a really bad one. Let's actually grab ultimate. Let's use one that everyone has, right? Everyone's probably got the Thunder Cage, right? So the Thunder Cage actually has a really high firearm critical hit rate. So this is the number that when you get the bonus on your firearm critical hit rate, on your module, let's say it has like 100%. That would take this 20 and get 100% of that 20, meaning that you get 40. So if you played Path of Exile, think of it as, well, this is the crit, and you're not increasing base crit with the module, but you're increasing the crit of whatever the weapon is. But if you take an item like, let's say, the organ, this is a very popular weapon for Glay, you can see that the firearm critical hit rate is 1. So if I got 100% or 200% on my modules, that only gives me 2 or 3%. So depending on your character's build, you may not want to get crit, and that's very important to explain because this doesn't apply to everyone. However, it is with most cases. Now, what's that number? I couldn't tell you. I don't know how many module slots you got. You'd have to math it out. But basically, ideally, you'd want to have at least 10 to 20-ish% crit, and if it has really high crit, then getting crit damage will actually matter. But don't get crit hit chance or the firearm critical hit rate or crit damage if your weapon is like 1% crit. You're wasting your stats. So I had to mention that. I know it's a little bit longer, but this is very important because it doesn't work. And I've seen some content creators say, oh, get crit always. No, because of certain items, it's bad. Now, another thing that can be pretty good, it is a special mod, but it makes it so when you are attacking enemies with some sort of condition, every single Descendant, for the most part, with the exception of like non-attribute ones, you can apply electric, you can apply burn, you can apply chill, right? This gives you a big bonus of your firearms attack, where you normally wouldn't be able to get like a very high number for like this sort of a capacity of, let's say, like 15 or whatever. This is a very high number that you're getting with no real downside. A lot of these other things that will give you big damage will have some sort of negative effect or like condition. Obviously this one has a slight condition, but if you're playing a build like Bunny, I mean everything's electrocuted, so you would get electric conductor. So this one again is more niche, but you do have to apply the condition, but there are a lot of builds that you'll just have this up. So that's why I want to kind of include this as like an extra bonus here. Another thing that is fantastic for a lot of builds, a lot of people won't really invest into shields anyways, and there are certain other characters like Glay that can benefit off of this because, well, they have no shields. It's just like part of the character, right? So one thing I want to add to it is check out your character's like build. Like Glay again has no MP, or if you're playing a character build that really doesn't need certain stats, you can look at other modules that give you negative of one stat that will heavily benefit off of another. So check that out. But in general, these are going to be the top tier modules for like every single player in the game. And with the exception of in the very beginning, I mentioned like getting your extra skills. If you're playing a character that like doesn't really need cooldown reduction or whatever, then yeah. But in most cases, these are going to be applying to every single character. So get your defense up, get your HP up. Do not invest in the shields unless you know exactly what you're doing, which there are technically builds, but I want this video to be for like the 99% of the player base. So damage, you want the rifle reinforcement. For defenses, HP and defense. Anyways, that's going to wrap things up. If you guys enjoyed the video, learned something new, drop a like, sub, follow if you're new here, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.